Welcome along to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. My name's Harry Colley, and I am here to give you the instant live reaction to Everton's home game this evening against Wolverhampton. I've just finished live tweeting the game over on our X account. Remember, you can follow us at Everton Newsfeed on X. And my word, what a game that was. I've got some notes in front of me. I'm going to try and make sense of what's just happened over the last 90 minutes or so on Merseyside, where it finished Everton 4, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. Everton recording their biggest win at Goodison Park since 2020 and giving themselves some much needed breathing room between us and the relegation zone heading into this weekend's Merseyside derby. Where subsequently we've just found out that Liverpool dropped points this evening. They drew 3-3 away to Newcastle. But we're not here to talk about that lot. We're here to talk about our lot, Sean Dyche's side, who have come under a lot of criticism in recent weeks. Obviously, absolutely collapsing at Manchester United on Sunday. Before that, not scoring a goal since October. And it had looked very, very bleak. I think it had started to come across in the atmosphere. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to break it down for you here on the post-match. But let's start with the team news, shall we? So what we saw in the lineup this evening was something that looked a little bit different from Sean Dyche's side. Stuck with the kind of expected back four in front of Pickford of Young, Tarkowski, Branthwaite and Mykolenko. He then changed things up in midfield. Mangala coming in for Lindstrom, which meant Mangala and Ghana Gay were in midfield. Doucouré sitting in that 10. And then it looked like with the way the lineup came out onto the pitch that Ndiaye switched over to the right, McNeil was on the left, and then DCL coming in for Beto, who of course played a pretty thankless task at the weekend. So let's talk about the atmosphere then with the game starting. It came across very not so loud and clear on the TV feed, the atmosphere at Goodison. It felt very cagey. It felt like for the first 10 minutes, including the kind of the build-up, them coming out of the tunnel, the game kicking off, that the crowd were just done. And look, there's going to be debate here around whether we need to get behind the side if you go into the game, or, you know, if it's okay to say after years and years and years of just being in this situation now that it's enough. It's the last thing you want to do on a Wednesday night. Regardless of that's a debate for another video. But when we're talking about the match and how that translated to the match itself, it certainly was very, very cagey, and it looked like Wolves were going to kind of scrap and claw their way to some kind of expected victory at Goodison this evening, certainly how the first 10 to 15 went. And then we saw something a little bit special, didn't we? Ashley Young, a man who has just absolutely been rejuvenated in recent weeks. I think the first few games of the season really, really poor. Since then, I'd argue that he's been in and around man of the match for every game that Everton have looked half decent in. He would certainly, spoiler alert, be my man of the match shout for this evening. He won the TV's man of the match, and he becomes the oldest player in the Premier League to score a direct free kick. He scored that. He bent one round the wall. Jose Sarr had a really poor night in goal for Wolves. There was a lot of talk about him in the build-up, about how him and Sam Johnson, they're being rotated. They don't look settled. He certainly didn't look settled. It went kind of straight through his hands, really. It looked a bit like a FIFA glitch. And Ashley Young puts Everton 1-0 up. And then things start to change. I think Everton still look a little bit nervy on the ball at this point, but the crowd seem a little bit more up for it. James Tarkowski then goes and gives Everton a second. From a great free kick delivery from Dwight McNeil, by the way, and we'll talk more about Dwight McNeil in a bit, because I thought overall today, certainly his set piece and dead ball delivery, flawless. And VAR, after a lengthy check, they send the referee to the monitor. It looks like Mangala is standing in an offside position when the ball is played, and he's deemed to obstruct a Wolves player who could have defended the ball from Tarkowski. So the goal is ruled out. Now, couple of things here, and I got a lot of flack for this on X, and I'm just going to clear this up. I just said what was said on TV, which was Mangala obstructed the player and the goal was ruled out. I didn't say I agreed with it. And to clear things up, I don't agree with it. I think it was ridiculous. There were three other players around Tarkowski that could have cleared that ball. They didn't. He just rose higher. He got his head on the ball. It was a great goal, and it was, in my opinion, wrongly ruled out. But hey, we're all biased here, aren't we? So should have been 2-0, was 1-0. And then you start to think at 1-0 with Wolves having the impetus maybe to go for it and try and claw something back. They put a little bit more pressure on Everton towards the end of the first half. But no, that doesn't happen. The kind of typical Everton narrative does not continue. Mangala gets his first goal for Everton. What a strike. The ball kind of breaks after a bit of a melee in the box, falls to him. He kicks it, he hits it sweetly enough. I wouldn't say a rocket. I think that would maybe be a bit hyperbolic, but it certainly nestles nicely in the bottom corner. It makes it 2-0. It gives Everton a very well-deserved lead at half-time. Pickford in the first half, by the way, he makes a couple of decent stops, does a typical Jordan Pickford thing for me. He makes the stops when they matter. He's always going to keep you in games. I've said this countless times in recent weeks. So 2-0, Pickford makes a couple of good saves. That's the first half. We come out for the second half. No changes for either side. It looks like Wolves have made a bit of a change to their formation. And then you start to think again at only 2-0, what could have been with that Tarky goal, 3-0 out of sight, it would have looked a lot more comfortable. Are they still going to come and attack? And they do in spells, Wolves. But I've got to say, for every side that we've played this season, I think Wolves, although they've had a bit of a resurgence lately, they just looked really poor, very toothless, pardon the pun. I think they're in trouble. I think Gary O'Neill's in trouble. I think the fans there, the travelling fans tonight, were really unimpressed. They certainly voiced that towards the end of the game. And they'd be very unimpressed with their defending because they couldn't handle Everton's set pieces at all this evening. The corner comes in from Dwight McNeil. It initially looks like DCL gets his third goal of the season and ends his goal drought, as well as Everton already ending theirs tonight. But clear as day, Craig Dawson decides to elbow it. It kind of misses DCL pretty much completely, I think, apart from maybe a slight brush of the ball. Dawson gets it with his arm. The commentator on the TV feed said if that hadn't been a goal, he would have been sent off. So I don't understand why it can't be both in that situation, but I'm not a Premier League rules expert. I don't think anyone is really, but there we go. So it's 3-0 Everton. Dawson own goal it goes down as. Everton playing very well. And then again, we have the ball in the back of the net and it's disallowed. This time a little bit more clear cut. We see Ndiaye kick the ball against Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's on the ground after going up with Jose Sarr. Ndiaye then puts the rebound into the back of the net. It's ruled out for offside. DCL judged to foul the goalkeeper. That one, I guess, yeah, more clear cut. He's good. They've both gone for the ball. Sarr's got that protection as the goalkeeper. He needed it tonight, and it was not a goal. So there we go, another one that could have been. And then we get almost a kind of a carbon copy replay. This time, another McNeil dead ball delivery. Calvert-Lewin up. Dawson with the final touch. This one goes to VAR, looking for offside again. So very similar to the Mangala one that was disallowed in the first half. And this time it's given. So my message on this is, let's make it make sense, shall we? Because I don't understand how two almost very similar situations in the game get two different outcomes. But we're not complaining tonight. We're not dwelling on this too much because it then goes 4-0 Everton. And then the changes start to get made. And we want to dedicate a bit of time to the changes here because for the good and the bad. So Jack Harrison comes on for Dwight McNeil. Emmanuel Broja and Jesper Lindstrom come on for Doucouré and Calvert-Lewin. And then later in the game, Harrison Armstrong comes on. A man, by the way, who is younger than Ashley Young's Premier League career. He comes on for goalscorer Mangala. So let's have a little word on each of the substitutions, shall we? I think we'll start with the ones that cause pretty much in offence. So Harrison Armstrong, I thought solid enough in a game that when he entered it, all he needed to do was be calm, and he was exactly that. He put in a pretty feisty challenge towards the end of the game on one of the several Gomez's that play for Wolves. He got a yellow card, but I mean, he looked pretty decent, pretty mature for the short spell that we saw him. Jesper Lindstrom, I thought tonight, flurries of quite nice things from him, good ball delivery. I don't necessarily think he was much of an attacking threat, but I think he released Broja on a couple of occasions. Let's talk about Broja, by the way. He looked bright. I thought he looked really sharp. I think there's some exciting things to come from him and we won't dwell too much on it. He got what, 10, 15 minutes, but he held the ball up really nicely for one of the many chances that Jack Harrison got in his short cameo. And so I'm excited, by the way, for what we see from Broja moving forward. Jack Harrison, on the other hand, I don't want to pick too many negatives tonight because 4-0 Everton, let's celebrate that, please, because it's been a while. Jack Harrison, for me, I said this before, I think this was a loan deal of convenience. I said in another video earlier this season, he's got to desperately improve, and he's just not. He's really not. He's a player so bereft of confidence in a squad that are quite low on confidence, but whereas other players seem to be pulling themselves up, he blazed two incredibly clear chances, almost carbon copies, high, wide and not so handsome late in the game. He could have had a brace. He had a much more clearer one that was blocked, so this time at least it was sort of like looking like it was going on target, just not composed, panicking. And you think, if you're panicking in a game where you're already 4-0 up, can you be relied on in some of these games we've got coming up? Because let's face it, we've got a tough run. This is where we come back down to reality with a bit of a bump, folks. Tough run ahead. Can we count on Jack Harrison? Now, Sean Dyche seems to think we can in very short spells towards the end of games. I think he wasted some very good chances. I also think for the couple of the dead balls that he was over after McNeil went off, just night and day in terms of delivery. He's not got a sharp delivery of a corner ball. So yeah, don't want to be someone heaping negativity on a guy that's clearly struggling. But Jack Harrison for me is just not it. So anyway, let's conclude, shall we? 4-0 Everton. An incredibly positive night in large spells against a very underwhelming Wolves side. We now head into this weekend's game against Liverpool, the final Merseyside derby at Goodison. Let's see what happens. Plenty more content to come on the Toffee Blues. Give us your shouts for man of the match. Give us your thoughts on tonight's performance and give us your predictions heading in to the weekend. I'm Harry Colley. This has been the instant match review for the Toffee Blues. Make sure you follow us over on YouTube and on X. Bye for now.